My name is Elena Krupika, and this is Proxima, dance training footwear that assists in injury prevention. Dance sneakers that exist on the market today leave a lot to be desired. They haven't been updated in over 10 years, and just in general don't have the modern styling and material technology that consumers would prefer to see in the products that they're purchasing. As a result, most dancers are training in what are considered barefoot shoes or barefoot footwear solutions. So here you can see a few examples from acrobatic shoes, socks, and dance paws. And the issue with all of these is that they leave dancers vulnerable to injury by not allowing them to have the appropriate cushioning and support that the foot needs. Just to back that up, here are the responses I received from 50 dancers that I contacted in the beginning of my research through a survey. If you look at the overall spread, actually the only category that's wearing a shoe that allows any support for the foot with cushioning involved is the jazz shoe, so 12.5% of dancers, which is not enough. So to gain some more insight into the issues that this causes, I spoke to several podiatrists. This here is from Dr. Jared Remmers, and he was talking about issues such as stress fractures and bursitis, ligamentotaxies, fat pad atrophy, and osteoarthritis. And of these, one of the most pressing would probably be fat pad atrophy, which is where the fat pad on the bottom of your foot breaks down. Obviously, this is a big issue because it's painful, but also it's an issue because your body can't regenerate that tissue. So it's a problem for the rest of your life. Here you can see just the general spread of different foot injuries that can impact a dancer and are common, just to get an idea of what this looks like. So for those of you that aren't familiar with dance, I'm speaking specifically about modern, contemporary, or jazz dance. And some of the activities these dancers are doing are really the key ones they're doing that may cause injuries are turns, balances, and jumps. So each of these activities have their own separate needs from the footwear, and I've sort of identified these as different design criteria for myself to use. So those three functional problems I addressed were lockdown, so making sure the shoe isn't rotating off of the foot and staying secure. Fit, when there are issues with the fit, you are just naturally more prone to injury, so allowing the fit to be adaptable can help counteract some of that. And then just impact. As I spoke to you before, repetitive impact can be very damaging to the feet, so allowing for some impact reduction is very helpful. For the overall user and consumer of this product, the user is dancers ages 10 to 16. This is the age range when children are growing and therefore most susceptible to injuries which could negatively impact them for the rest of their life. And it's also the age range when there are the most people participating in dance and the product could have the most impact. The consumer for the product, however, is going to be parents and guardians because oftentimes they are the ones that are purchasing these products for their children. This is something just to keep in mind as I'm going through my presentation, because while the design insights are focused around the user age range of 10 to 16, some of the more outward aspects, such as the fact that I'm tackling medical issues, is oriented more towards the parents and guardians who may be more concerned about this. So this brings me back to my design statement, which was design a dance footwear solution that assists in injury prevention. Introducing Proxima, a bracing and sneaker set which is adapted specifically to a dancer's needs. Throughout the design process, I went through a lot of iterations. Starting out, I wanted to do something very minimal, but would allow for the most movement of the foot and freedom for the dancer to move. However, I found that there wasn't enough support in this design. There also wasn't enough lockdown to keep the shoe in place. So moving forward, I moved to this more slingback design, which gave a lot more lockdown, at least from the heel to toe of the foot, but then still had issues securing from side to side. For this reason, I moved on to this final design, which allows you to secure the foot in both directions and it is adjustable to each dancer's needs. As one of the podiatrists I spoke to, Craig Scala, said, the key is support without restriction. Now I'll guide you through some of the prototyping that I did throughout this process. Starting out, you can see that I was investigating a lot with how to most appropriately do the strapping. So I already talked about how I changed this design to make sure it was going in both directions of the foot, but here you can just see some of that experimentation. You can also see the idea of the split sole demonstrated here, or why you need it in dance shoes. So in dance footwear, you need the split sole in order to have the full articulation of the foot and the ability to point the toes. After doing the first round of iteration and seeing how I could most appropriately do the straps, but that you still needed some more containment in the toe of the shoe, I moved on to my second prototype. So this one had a more secure strapping system, more defined, but I still was having some issues. You can see that the toe portion of the leather is a little low down, and this doesn't help much with keeping the shoe in place as the dancer is turning or jumping. And that's a lot of what I heard when I tested this with the on-campus dance company. They just wanted a sort of tighter fit, more security, especially in the toe of the shoe, to allow it to stay in place. So then moving on to my final prototype, this obviously has that around the heel elastic, which adapts to each dancer's foot, pulling it snug and close to both the toe and heel, but also those widthwise straps, which are adjustable. When I tested this with the dance company, I got really positive feedback. The one area of improvement that they really identified is that they wanted the top of the shoe to come up higher. You'll see it's a little bit maybe slouchy, and that elastic could rub on the heel, so just pulling that up higher was really the one thing they identified. So then going into my final design, all of these things sort of came together to become this unified jazz shoe and sneaker look with lockdown in both directions to create anti-rotational force, and some other design aspects which I will really go into further in the rest of the presentation. One of the most important design features of this shoe is the adjustable elastic that goes from toe to heel. You can think about this system working a little bit like the strapping system on an adjustable sandal does. So the elastic strap passes through the actual heel portion of the shoe where there's an embedded D-ring like you would have on a backpack that allows you to pull the elastic through but then hold it in place as it's adjusted. So as you can see, when you pull on the elastic, it actually tightens the shoe down over your toes. Additionally, there's also a specifically designed outsole pattern. So this is for the grip of the shoe. You have these concentric circles which allow for controlled turning, but additionally you have a traditional herringbone pattern like what's used in basketball shoes that allows the most grip, and it's focused so that the grippiest parts are going to be at the back of the ball of your foot and in your heel, which is sort of where you're stomping and landing when you are doing big jumps and you want that stopping power. So now I'm going to tie back in those injuries I spoke to you about in the beginning of my presentation and how they apply to the design that I created. The upper of the shoe is dominated by this knit booty construction, which mimics a compression sock and increases blood flow and recovery for the overall foot. The adjustable strap system applies pressure at the back of the heel, mimicking a solution that dancers are already using of taping around the back of their heel to alleviate some of the Achilles problems that are common in dancers. And then just utilizing a modern sneaker midsole and outsole allows for the necessary cushioning that combats a lot of the impact issues the dancers are having. And then on top of all of this, I've designed an adaptable brace for dancers to use as extra support. Obviously, ankle braces are really common in all kinds of athletics, but traditional ankle braces aren't very usable in the dance world just because they don't fit underneath or over common dance footwear. So this brace, which is sort of in an X shape, can go underneath and over the shoe, allowing that additional support that maybe you wouldn't need every day, but you would need some of the time. Now, before I go into my next section, which is the materiality of the shoe, I wanted to show you why this is so important in my design. So when I asked the parents of dancers why they purchased a shoe for their child, besides the idea that the shoe was recommended to them, the highest rated thing was the materials that the shoe was made of, even higher than the brand of the shoe or the cost, the comfort, or the fit. So obviously this is something that's really important to the consumer and something that I needed to take into account. For that, compression knit upper of the shoe that is an engineered knit, which allows you to use some more performance fibers, and is something that's really common in the performance industry, but really elevates the product to modern standards. The use of sew-free technology and nylon shock cord gives you the most lightweight solution to secure the foot from side to side, going all the way underneath the arch. And then a Clarino Terranina synthetic suede gives you all of the performance capabilities of any other high-end athletic performance shoe, while also having that heritage feel of leather. The elastic itself is just a structural elastic that would give you a lot of grip and support and a little bit of resistance. Here are the overall materials of the shoe just for reference. One of the unique design criteria for dance footwear is the fact that you need it in specific colors in order to adhere to common studio practices. So you need a black and white pair and a nude pair, which you can see on the far left, to have the sort of classic look if you need to adhere to a dress code. But then I also wanted this design to speak to modern performance footwear and give you sort of a flashier or more in-motion appearance. So there on the top, you'll see I applied some more performance colors and bright pops, whereas on the bottom, you have more of a classical dance look, which is inspired by the color palettes of classical ballets. This brought me to my final design colorway, which is this performance sneaker colorway. It's bright, it's flashy, it gives a little bit of individuality, while still not straying too far from the classic black look. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback.